And so what they're trying to do is they're trying to accelerate the collapse of empire and then basically create the conditions for a new empire to arise, whether it be in Israel, Argentina, or China. Okay? They're trying to accelerate events so as to maximize their profit.
So 1944 until recently, we had a world order, liberalism, neoliberalism, and now we are staring down the barrel of a new world order that is much more uncertain, much more dangerous, and definitely much more unequal. Are we just experiencing a regression to a historical mean, which is this is the law of the jungle? That's what most of human history has been. We had 70 years of prosperity. That's just really a blip. Or is it the opposite? Is actually the historical mean prosperity, collaboration, globalism, and we're actually entering an aberration?
Yeah. Okay. So one text that a lot of these tech oligarchs obsess over is Isaac Asimov's Foundation series. Okay. And the idea of the Foundation series is this is like an empire, and it's been around for 10,000 years, but it's in decline. And this decline will last thousands of years, the Dark Ages. And the Dark Ages means a time of tremendous human suffering. And so what they're trying to do in the foundation is trying to shorten the lifespan of the Dark Ages and create an empire as soon as possible in order to reduce human suffering. And believe it or not, but a lot of these people like Peter Thiel, especially Peter Thiel, but and Elon Musk, like they see like the ultimate purpose is to prevent humanity from entering the Dark Ages. Because if you know any history, okay, you know that whenever it's decline, what happens now is the Dark Ages. Just like 100 years of complete and utter chaos. Think of the fall of the Roman Empire, okay? Think of the Bronze Age collapse. They understand that imperial decline, imperial collapse just means tremendous human suffering. The complete breakdown of civilization, just the most abhorrent behavior, okay? And they're thinking to themselves, how do we prevent that from happening? And that's what they see their mission as. That's why, they're so obsessed with data centers and AI and going to Mars, because they believe that this technology could be a loophole in the grand course of human rise and decline, the grand story of human rise and decline. Like, can we create technology so that we can skip from empire to the next stage of human evolution? Okay, that's what they believe. Does that make sense?
Yeah, of course, of course. This is my last question because I've seen some of the questions you submitted and they're fantastic. So we'll make time for those. I see a lot of young people in this crowd, and I'd like to think I'm still young, and I am scared. So when I watch your videos and I look at the state of the world, it seems pretty dark. But I know that you've spoken to this, and I would love to see your advice for young people, I guess, to avoid them falling into nihilism, which I suppose is its own psyop. We don't want to feel learned helplessness. We want to feel like we can do something about the future. And I'd love to hear your take or your advice for young people going into this new paradigm in the world.
Right. So I think a lot of the fear and anxiety comes from a fundamental misunderstanding of our nature, where we came from, what we're doing here, where we're going. If you study the occult, if you read the Divine Comedy, if you read the great books, what you recognize is that first and foremost, we are spiritual beings, that we are pure consciousness, and we are constantly connected to the divine, that our consciousness exists in infinite dimensions, and there's a beauty, there's a real power that is inherent in us, but we have fallen asleep. We have been blinded, and we have been tricked into believing that, no, we are just a body, a husk. And this husk is all that we have, so we must cherish it. And once it dies, then we die with it. And we've forgotten where we came from. And it's because we've forgotten and they've been able to trick us. That's the source of our anxiety. That's the source of our fear. And so my advice is to reclaim your heritage. Okay, we're not husk. We're not just like these monkeys here to fornicate and pass on our genes to other generations. We are divine spiritual beings that is part of the great consciousness we can call God. God is in us and we are in God. And we're here to experience things that we couldn't experience in other dimensions. And I would say the most important thing we can experience here that we can't experience anywhere else is the idea of family. Okay, like having someone you truly love and then together raising a family and then loving your children and seeing them grow old. If you read Homer, what the Odyssey tells us is that is the greatest joy, the greatest purpose of being alive, of being human, to love your family. I'm not sure if you've seen Christopher Nolan's film. I have not seen it, but reading the Odyssey, I will tell you that that's a central theme of Homer. Remember, Odysseus goes to Trojan War seeking fame and glory, like Achilles. They all go to Trojan War seeking fame and glory and prestige. And what they recognize is, no, what really matters at the end of the day is family. Having someone who believes in you, having someone who loves you. That's the real purpose of being here. And so we have to, as a species, as a people, read the great books, appreciate their meaning because they are really channeling the divine in their text, and then reclaim our heritage as spiritual beings. And once we do that, then this marks a new age in humanity, and everything that's happening will be nothing in the grand scheme of things. We have not really at all manifest our true power. Imagine a world in which we are fully conscious of our divine heritage and we are pursuing our purpose, our telos in life. Well, I think that sort of world would be a magical world full of powers we could never previously imagine. Okay, and there are some occultists who believe that we've created this world before. It's called Atlantis. Okay, so we humans, what we're capable of doing is beyond our imagination. Now, I mean, I know this world looks impressive. We have like airplanes, we have the internet, but that's just because we put our minds to it. That's just because we want to create this world. So imagine if we want to create a world in which there is peace and prosperity, in which the human spirit is free to fully roam the universe, then I think that world will be more magnificent. Okay?
We have questions, many of them, very good ones. So there's a question from Josh. In my opinion, the most critical war in the world is not an external physical war, like those in Ukraine, Israel, and Iran. It's an internal war within each one of us between materiality and spirituality. Do you feel like it's more of an internal war?
Yeah, so if you look at all the major religions, whether it's Hinduism, Buddhism, Christianity, Judaism, they all say the same thing, which is we ourselves, our consciousness, is a fractal of the universe. Okay, so we're always connected to the universe, and the universe is always within us. We're just a reflection of the universe. So what happens inside of us is reflected throughout the universe. I know this is hard to imagine, but all of these people, all these different religions working in different cultures, different times, they say the same thing. They emphasize the same point. And the point is the real battle between heaven and hell is the battle within us. The moment we choose to do good, the world will be a better place. The moment we choose to do evil, the world will be a worse place. And the classic example that I use is the Iliad by Homer, where, Achilles, by the end of the Iliad, has done all these demonic things. He caused the death of his best friend Patroclus. He killed Hector and is constantly mutilating his body, and he's doing so in front of his parents, Priam and Hecuba. And he's causing all this tragedy and pain throughout the story. And the Iliad ends with Hector's father, Priam, forgiving Achilles, sneaking into Achilles' tent, kissing the hand of the demon who killed his son, and like humbling himself before Achilles. And that act, it sounds so insignificant, but it changes the entire course of the universe. Not only because, one, it allows Achilles to forgive himself, it allows him to redeem himself from all his evil, and it causes a reconciliation between Achilles and Priam so that they leave as good friends. But this idea, this story, it's captured by Homer and internalized in the Iliad so that when we read it, it becomes part of us as well. Okay? So it's, but you're like, well, but that's because someone was there to record it. The universe is recording every single thing we do. And it's remembering everything that we do. And so imagine where, like you forgive an enemy and it's only the two of you who experience this, but the universe sees this and the universe records it. And then what the universe does is it implants this memory into our imagination so that one of us, like Homer, could write about it. And then it becomes part of the universal consciousness. So the universe is almost magical in this way. And so we can choose to do good, we can choose to do evil. And we have to remember, like, everything we do will have an impact in the universe. Immanuel Kant talks about this, and he says it is a categorical imperative. And when the categorical imperative is everything you do, imagine that whatever you do, everyone in the universe does at the same time. So if you laugh, if you smile, everyone in the universe laughs and smiles with you. If you get angry, everyone gets angry with you. So ask yourself, like, what kind of world do you want to live in? And then just be that world, and the world will become it.
Question from Jessica. Why will Christians triumph over people with progressive secular values? I suppose in the US.
Yeah. Okay. That's a really good question. So, right now in the United States, the professional managerial class, and I imagine there's a lot of us in this group. Okay, I'm also part of the PMC, as is Ali. We're ascended. Okay, we went to the best schools. We work really hard, really smart. We're very cosmopolitan, open-minded. We're constantly learning. We know how to get things done, and this has led to a great deal of inequality. It's led to a lot of stagnancy. And so the professional managerial class, the meritocracy, represents the pinnacle of Enlightenment philosophy, right? In the 18th century, when Enlightenment thinkers like Jean-Jacques Rousseau and Immanuel Kant were writing, they were really hoping for a world like this, and a world in which we've transcended religion, race, and culture. And the problem, though, is even though in many ways the world we're living in marks the height of human civilization, people are really unhappy. People feel really depressed. People feel lonely. People feel meaningless. People are very, very nihilistic. And I think the reason why is we are first and foremost spiritual beings. And Enlightenment philosophy negates that. The meritocracy negates that. It wants us to first and foremost focus on our material needs, because Enlightenment thinking, what it does is it prioritizes human reason above human emotion. In fact, it sees human emotion almost as an enemy. And I think that, yeah, maybe for the first 100 years, 20 years, that was great because it's led to a lot of progress. But at the same time, it's denying our true nature. And if we deny our true nature, we can never be happy. So I think that eventually, and I think we're already seeing it, you're gonna have a huge backlash towards religion. The problem is that organized religion can be just as problematic as the world we live in, right? So think of the Catholic Church during the medieval ages. And so we have to abandon our focus on materialism and embrace our spirituality. The problem is how to do so in a way that maintains our individuality. That's a real challenge